Hey guys, tonight we're going to take a long, slow stroll back in time. Not to the dramatic battlefields or the grand palaces, but right into the heart of a quiet Bronze Age village. Imagine, if you will, the gentle hush of pre-dawn, long before the insistent clamor of an alarm clock even began to exist. You're not waking to the drone of traffic or the insistent ping of your phone, but to something far more fundamental, far more earthy. Picture yourself nestled on a simple straw mat, beneath a roof of woven reeds and mud, the air cool and still around you. The distant bleating of a goat, the soft rustle of leaves in a barely there breeze. These are your morning symphony. There's no rush here, no pressing schedule. Your biggest concern might just be whether the morning fire catches easily. You probably wouldn't survive a single morning in this slow-paced world without a coffee machine, let alone a whole day. But trust me, there's a quiet beauty to it. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Feel free to drop your location and local time in the comments. It's always fun to see where everyone's drifting off from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. As the first hint of light, a pale whisper of pink and gold, begins to creep over the distant hills, filtering through the small opening of your hut, you stir. There's no sudden jolt, no frantic checking of the time. Your body is still attuned to the natural rhythms of the world, a forgotten harmony that modern life has all but drowned out. You stretch slowly, feeling the ache in muscles that have worked hard the day before, shaping clay or tending fields. Perhaps a wisp of smoke drifts in from the central hearth, a faint, woody scent that promises warmth and the coming of a new day. You can almost feel the cool packed earth beneath your feet as you rise, the subtle unevenness of the floor. The sounds outside are still muted, a testament to the fact that even in a bustling village, the dawn holds a certain reverence. You might hear the soft clatter of pottery from a neighboring hut, or the low murmur of voices as others begin their slow awakening. This feeling of unhurried transition is one of the hallmarks of life in the Bronze Age. We often think of this period in terms of grand empires and mighty battles, the gleaming bronze weapons and formidable chariots. And while those things certainly existed, for most people, life was lived on a much smaller, more intimate scale. Your entire world was, for the most part, confined to the few square miles surrounding your home. The pace was dictated not by clocks or calendars, but by the sun, the seasons, and the pressing needs of survival. There was a directness to existence that we can only dimly imagine now. If you needed something, you made it. If you wanted to eat, you grew it or hunted it. There were no middlemen, no global supply chains, just the earth, your hands, and the collective efforts of your community. It sounds exhausting, doesn't it? But somehow, it also sounds incredibly simple, doesn't it? Like a slow, deep breath you didn't even realize you needed to take. Historians still argue whether the concept of leisure, as we understand it, truly existed in the Bronze Age, or if every waking moment was simply another facet of survival. But consider this. Without artificial light, without screens, without the endless distractions of our digital age, the quiet moments must have held a different weight. Perhaps simply sitting by the hearth, watching the embers glow, was a profound act of relaxation. There was no social media to endlessly scroll, no breaking news alerts to fret over. Your news came from the storyteller in the evening, from the gossip at the well, from the changing patterns of the sky. It was a local, tactile world. You knew the texture of the clay, the heft of your tools, the feel of grain between your fingers. It was a world that encouraged a deep, intimate connection with your surroundings. A world that forced you to slow down and truly observe. And in that observation, perhaps, lay a peculiar form of peace. Now, as the sun begins its slow ascent, casting longer shadows and painting the world in hues of ochre and gold, your Bronze Age day truly begins. There are no frantic sprints to catch a bus or a hurried gulp of lukewarm coffee. Instead, you move with a deliberate, unhurried grace, each action flowing seamlessly into the next. Your first task might be to rekindle the fire, coaxing life from the smoldering embers of last night's warmth. You carefully add a few dried twigs, then some larger branches, blowing gently until the flames leap up, casting dancing shadows on the packed earth walls of your dwelling. This fire isn't just for warmth. It's for cooking, for light, for a central gathering point. It's the ancient equivalent of your all-in-one smart home device, just, a bit smokier. Once the fire is roaring gently, perhaps you step outside. The air is still cool, crisp with the scent of damp earth and wood smoke. You might stretch your arms towards the sky, acknowledging the rising sun, a silent, unconscious ritual. Then, it's time for the animals. Maybe you have a few goats, their soft bleats greeting you as you approach. You milk them by hand, the warm, frothy liquid filling a clay pot. There's no rush, just the steady rhythm of your fingers, the gentle chewing of the animals. This isn't a chore to be rushed through. It's a fundamental part of your day, a connection to the very source of your sustenance. You might even murmur a few words to them, a quiet acknowledgement of their contribution to your life. Because in this world, every living thing plays a vital role. Perhaps you then turn to the fields. If it's planting season, you're carefully placing seeds into the tilled earth, one by one, with a focus that borders on meditative. You feel the soil, gauge its moisture, listen to the subtle whispers of the wind. There's no complex machinery, no prepackaged fertilizers. Your tools are simple, a wooden plow pulled by an ox, a hand hoe, but they are effective, and their use demands a constant rhythmic effort. It's an interesting thought, isn't it, that for thousands of years, the vast majority of human effort was directly tied to the land? We've managed to abstract ourselves from that connection in so many ways. But in the Bronze Age, your breakfast literally depended on the rain and your own strong back. One fascinating, if slightly peculiar, tidbit about Bronze Age agriculture is the sheer variety of crops they cultivated. It wasn't just wheat and barley, though those were staples. Depending on the region, you might be tending to lentils, chickpeas, various types of beans, or even early forms of oats. It was a slow, deliberate form of biodiversity, long before anyone used that word. And historians still debate whether early Bronze Age farming practices were primarily communal, with shared labor and resources, or if individual family plots were the dominant model. It's a tricky thing to pin down without written records detailing every transaction, but the evidence points to a strong sense of collective effort when it came to major tasks like building irrigation channels or clearing new fields. There was a sense of shared purpose that permeated these simple daily chores, an invisible web connecting everyone in the village. It really wasn't about me time in the way we understand it, was it? More like us time, all the time. With the morning's essential animal care and initial field checks complete, your thoughts, if you can call them that in this pre-verbal, instinctual way, would turn to the most fundamental of human desires: food. Forget the convenience of a supermarket or the instant gratification of a microwave. In a Bronze Age village, every meal was a project, a testament to patience and a deep understanding of natural processes. You might take some of the freshly gathered goat's milk and begin the slow process of turning it into cheese or yogurt, a way to preserve this precious resource for longer than a single day. This wasn't about fancy flavors. It was about survival, about making the most of what you had. The bubbling sound of milk heating over the fire, the subtle tang in the air as it begins to curdle. These were the aromas that filled your home. It's almost like a slow-motion, entirely organic chemistry experiment happening right there in your hut, isn't it? The main meal of the day, likely in the late morning or early afternoon, would be a communal affair, or at least a family one. Imagine the grains you harvested months ago, patiently stored in a cool, dry place. You'd take a portion, grind it slowly between two stones, a rhythmic, almost hypnotic motion that produced coarse flour. This wasn't the finely milled stuff you buy in bags. It was hearty, full of nutrients, and required a bit of elbow grease to prepare. From this flour, perhaps a simple flatbread would be cooked directly on the hot stones of the hearth, its earthy aroma filling the air. Or maybe a thick, nourishing porridge, simmering gently for hours, incorporating whatever vegetables or wild greens had been gathered from the nearby forests or riverbanks. There was no fast food here, only slow food by necessity. Meat, if you had it, was a rare treat. Perhaps a small wild animal snared, or a fish from the river. The preparation of meat was also a deliberate process, often involving roasting over an open fire or stewing for hours to tenderize it. There were no elaborate spice racks, no complex marinades. The flavors were pure, unadulterated, and rooted in the land. This often leads to a quirky historical tidbit. Archaeological digs sometimes reveal surprisingly large amounts of certain types of bones in Bronze Age settlements, suggesting that specific animals, like pigs, were not just a food source, but perhaps even part of ceremonial feasting, consumed slowly and communally over extended periods. It makes you wonder if they had the Bronze Age equivalent of a barbecue pitmaster, hasn't it? Though I doubt he'd be wearing a kiss the cook apron. And historians still debate the exact composition of the Bronze Age diet across different regions. While grains were certainly central, the extent to which wild foraging, hunting, or early forms of horticulture contributed varied greatly, depending on local ecosystems and cultural practices. Was it predominantly vegetarian with occasional meat, or did certain communities rely more heavily on animal products? The evidence is often fragmentary, pieced together from ancient middens and bone analyses. But what is clear is that every meal was a deeply considered act, a direct connection to the labor of your hands and the bounty of the earth. There were no decisions about ordering takeout, no debates over gluten-free options, just the honest, slow process of feeding yourself and your family, a process that fostered a profound appreciation for every bite. It was a simpler existence, yes, but one that demanded a deep presence in the moment, a focus on the tangible, earthy realities of life. After the midday meal, a period of rest might be observed, especially during the warmer months, as the sun climbed higher in the sky. But even this rest wasn't idleness in the modern sense. It was a necessary pause before the next round of deliberate activity, craft and creation. This was the age when people truly lived by the work of their hands, transforming raw materials into the very fabric of their existence. You wouldn't simply go to a store for a new pot. You would spend hours, days even, meticulously shaping it from clay, knowing that its integrity was crucial for storing your precious grains or carrying water from the well. Imagine the feel of the cool, damp earth in your hands, the slow, satisfying rotation as you coiled the clay upwards, building the vessel wall by patient wall. Each imperfection, each thumbprint, a testament to your direct involvement. It's almost therapeutic to think about, isn't it? The sheer lack of external pressure, just the task itself and the quiet hum of your own focus. Perhaps you were a weaver. The Bronze Age saw significant advancements in textile production, moving beyond simple animal skins to sophisticated woven fabrics. Picture yourself seated at a rudimentary loom, the threads taut, stretched between wooden beams. Your fingers, nimble and practiced, would meticulously pass the shuttle back and forth, weaving strands of wool or linen into cloth. This wasn't a quick process. Each thread laid, each row completed, was a slow, deliberate act. The rhythmic thwack of the beater as you compacted the rows of thread, the gentle sway of the loom. These were the sounds that accompanied hours of focused work. And this cloth wasn't just for fashion, though they certainly appreciated aesthetics. It was for clothing, for blankets, for shelter, a vital component of warmth and comfort in a world without central heating. It makes you realize how utterly dependent they were on their own ingenuity, doesn't it? No fast fashion here, just slow, enduring threads. One quirky detail, often overlooked, is the artistry that went into even the most utilitarian Bronze Age objects. While we might focus on the grand bronze swords, consider the intricate patterns sometimes found on mundane pottery or simple bone tools. These weren't just functional. They often carried symbolic meaning or simply reflected an innate human desire for beauty. It wasn't about mass production or efficiency in the way we understand it. It was about craftsmanship, about pouring time and care into everything you made. And historians still argue whether specific design motifs were purely aesthetic, or if they served as a form of early communication, conveying tribal identity or spiritual beliefs. The debate rages quietly in academic circles, a gentle hum of scholarly disagreement. The slow pace of creation meant that objects were cherished, used until they could no longer serve their purpose, and often repaired rather than discarded. If your favorite clay pot cracked, you'd patiently mend it, perhaps even drilling small holes and lacing it together with plant fibers. This was a world of inherent sustainability, not by conscious design, but by simple necessity. Every object had a story, a history of its making, and a life lived alongside its owner. There was no planned obsolescence, only enduring usefulness. This deep connection to the objects around them, forged through hours of slow, deliberate creation, must have fostered a sense of groundedness, a quiet satisfaction in the tangible results of their labor. It's a stark contrast to our own disposable culture, isn't it? Almost makes you want to go try your hand at some pottery. Almost. As the sun begins its slow arc downwards, casting long, golden shadows across the village, the rhythm of life subtly shifts. The intense focus on individual tasks, whether it was pottery or weaving or farming, gradually gives way to a more communal hum. This is where the social fabric of the Bronze Age village truly reveals itself, a tightly woven tapestry of interdependency and shared experience. There was no internet for distant connections, no phones for quick calls. Your social network was literally the people you could see, touch, and hear. Every person knew every other person, their skills, their quirks, their contributions. It created a level of intimacy that's almost hard to fathom in our increasingly atomized world. You knew your neighbor's children, their elderly parents, their triumphs, and their minor squabbles. It wasn't always perfect. Of course, human nature is human nature, but it was undeniably close-knit. Imagine the sound of children playing, their laughter echoing off the mud brick walls, perhaps chasing a stray chicken or rolling a crudely made wooden ball. Their games were simple, rooted in their environment, preparing them for the adult roles they would one day inherit. There were no structured playdates, no organized sports leagues, just the spontaneous, organic joy of childhood unfolding naturally within the village space. You might see the older women sitting together outside their huts, perhaps preparing vegetables for the evening meal, their hands moving with practiced ease, their voices a low, steady murmur of conversation and shared wisdom. They might be recounting old stories, sharing remedies for ailments, or simply enjoying each other's quiet company. This was the original social club, wasn't it? Just without the membership fees or the overly loud music. The hierarchy within the village, while perhaps not as rigid as later civilizations, certainly existed. There might be an elder who commanded respect through wisdom and experience, or a particularly skilled artisan whose craft was highly valued. Leaders emerged naturally, often based on ability or the perceived favor of the spirits. One fascinating, albeit fringe, theory suggests that some Bronze Age societies may have been surprisingly matriarchal, with women playing dominant roles in decision-making and religious practices, a stark contrast to later, more patriarchal structures. The archaeological evidence is often open to interpretation, making it a lively area of scholarly debate. But what is clear is that status was often tied to contribution. How well you farmed, how skillfully you crafted, how wisely you advised. There was a direct link between your effort and your standing in the community. Even disputes, when they arose, were handled within this immediate community. There were no complex legal systems or distant courts. Justice was often a communal affair, mediated by elders or agreed upon through a consensus of the villagers. This fostered a strong sense of collective responsibility. Everyone had a stake in maintaining harmony, because discord directly impacted daily life. You couldn't just pack up your bags and move to the next city. Your entire world, your survival, was intertwined with the well-being of your neighbors. This mutual reliance, this gentle pressure to get along, might sound stifling to our modern individualistic ears, but it also provided an incredible sense of security and belonging. When the harvest failed or sickness struck, you weren't alone. You were part of a resilient, interconnected web of human lives. As the sun dips lower, painting the sky with fiery oranges and soft purples, the working day in your Bronze Age village slowly winds down. The tools are put away, the animals settled for the night. This transition from labor to communal life wasn't a sudden switch, but a gentle softening of the day's edges and easing into the twilight. You might gather with your family outside your hut, perhaps watching the last rays of sunlight stretch across the fields you worked, feeling a quiet satisfaction in the day's efforts. The air cools, carrying the faint scent of wood smoke and the promise of a peaceful evening. There's no rush to get to a gym, no evening classes to attend. This time is for simply being. This period, as dusk settled, was the time for the less strenuous, yet equally vital, aspects of village life to unfold. Storytelling would have been paramount. Imagine the flicker of a central fire, casting dancing shadows on the faces of listeners. An elder might recount the myths of their ancestors, the tales of great hunts, or the sagas of the gods. These weren't just entertainment. They were the living history of the community, the way knowledge was passed down, morals reinforced, and a shared identity forged. You'd listen, mesmerized, perhaps tracing patterns in the dirt with your finger, completely absorbed in the spoken word. There were no screens to distract you, no notifications to pull you away. Just the sound of a voice, the crackle of the fire, and the vast, unfolding narrative. It sounds almost cozy, doesn't it? A bit like your favorite podcast, but with more actual crackling. Music, too, would have been simple but profound. Perhaps someone would play a bone flute, its haunting melody drifting on the evening air, or the rhythmic beat of a simple drum, accompanying chants or dances. These weren't performances for an audience in the modern sense, but communal expressions, a way to connect, to celebrate, to mourn. Historians still argue whether some of the abstract markings found on Bronze Age artifacts might represent early forms of notation or symbolic expressions related to these musical or ritualistic practices. It's a delightful thought, imagining ancient sheet music etched onto a stone. Then there's the delightful, sometimes awkward practice of social grooming. Not like fancy salons, but the simple act of sitting together, perhaps picking burrs from each other's hair or mending simple garments. These were mundane tasks, yes, but they were also profound acts of connection, fostering bonds and trust. It was a way to share silent moments, to offer comfort, to reinforce the understanding that you were truly part of a collective. This gentle, tactile interaction, so often missing from our digitized lives, created a physical closeness that cemented the community. Imagine just sitting silently with your best friend, simply mending their tunic. No need for words, pure zen. As the stars begin to appear, pinpricks of light in the deepening blue, the village sounds soften further. The distant bark of a dog, the chirping of crickets, the rustle of wind through the surrounding trees. It's a symphony of natural sounds, a lullaby orchestrated by the earth itself. The pace of life slows to an almost imperceptible crawl, preparing you for the deep, restorative sleep that awaits. Finally, as the last vestiges of daylight fade and the moon begins its gentle climb across the velvet expanse of the night sky, you prepare for night slumber. There are no glaring streetlights, no digital screens casting blue light into your eyes. The darkness is profound, a comforting blanket that encourages your senses to withdraw and your mind to quiet. You might add a final log to the dying embers of the fire, watching the last sparks dance upwards before settling into a soft glow. The air within your hut, though cool, holds the subtle warmth radiated from the earth and the memory of the day's sun. You settle back onto your sleeping mat, perhaps adjusting a simple animal skin or woven blanket. The sounds of the village are now almost entirely gone, replaced by the symphony of the night. The hoot of a distant owl, the rustle of a nocturnal creature in the undergrowth, the gentle whisper of the wind through the reeds of your roof. These are the lullabies of the Bronze Age. There's a profound sense of connection to the natural world, a direct link between your body's rhythms and the ancient pulse of the earth. You're not fighting against the night. You're sinking into it, becoming part of its quiet embrace. This deep, unadulterated darkness and silence allowed for a quality of sleep that many of us can only dream of now. Without artificial light to disrupt the body's natural clock, and without the mental clutter of constant information, sleep would have been a truly restorative process. Historians still debate the specific sleep patterns of Bronze Age people. Was it a single long stretch, or did they practice segmented sleep, waking in the middle of the night for a few hours before returning to slumber? The evidence is scarce, but the unpolluted night environment certainly would have facilitated either pattern. One quirky, almost poetic, thought is that the Bronze Age people likely experienced dreams of a different quality, perhaps more vivid and less fragmented by daily stresses, given their deep connection to cycles and nature. As you drift closer to sleep, you might reflect, however unconsciously, on the day that has passed. The feeling of the clay in your hands, the warmth of the sun on your back in the fields, the shared laughter around the cooking fire. There's a simplicity to this existence, a lack of the nagging anxieties that often accompany modern life. Your worries are immediate and tangible. The success of the next harvest, the health of your family, but they are also shared, diluted by the collective strength of the village. There's a quiet reassurance in knowing you are part of something larger, something ancient and enduring. The stars outside your hut begin to blaze with an intensity rarely seen in our light-polluted skies. Each one a tiny diamond, a pinprick of distant light in an ocean of darkness. You don't need an app to identify constellations. They are simply there, a vast and unchanging celestial map that has guided humanity for millennia. As your breathing deepens and your body relaxes into the ancient rhythm of the night, you become one with the quiet, slow pace of life in a Bronze Age village. Let the gentle whispers of history lull you further into a peaceful, dreamless sleep. The gentle hum of the fan, the soft weight of your blankets, the stillness of the room. Allow these sensations to wash over you now. The Bronze Age village, with its slow rhythms and earthy connections, is fading into the distance. The sounds of the ancient world are softening, the images blurring, dissolving into the quiet comfort of your own space. There's nothing left to do, nowhere left to go, simply rest. Let any lingering thoughts float away like wisps of smoke from an ancient hearth. Feel your body becoming heavier, more deeply relaxed with each slow, even breath. You are safe, you are warm, and the long, quiet story of history is now a gentle whisper in the deepest parts of your mind, guiding you gently into true, profound slumber.